long. I think it usually takes a day or two.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes it doesn't transcribe, and I don't know what makes the difference, because we've had calls that are way longer that get transcribed and others that aren't. I don't know if it's like nobody watches, and so it doesn't assume that it needs to. I don't know what triggers the transcription, but anyway, probably gonna have to manually transcribe that one. Okay, so we're live on YouTube. Let me record on this computer, because that'll just be easier to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna try and knock these out really quickly. So when I grew up, I was raised Christian, and there was an analogy of being a sheep or a goat that is used in religion. Being a sheep is portrayed as a good thing, listening to the shepherd, being a good follower. Being a goat is a bad thing. It's like the goat and the sheep get separated, or at least that's what was taught. And as I've kind of become my own person, I think I like to think of myself as neither a sheep or a goat. But there's another set of stories that I really like, that I identify with, and that is the talking pig stories. There's Babe is the story that comes to mind. The story of Babe is this little pig is a runt, and he gets taken to a fair and auctioned off in a raffle. And so he goes to live with this farmer who has some sheep and sheepdogs. And so he gets adopted by the sheepdog family and learns how to become a sheepdog. And the core thing about Babe the pig is he was just such a kind-hearted animal that he didn't identify with the dog's point of view, which is you have to boss the sheep around, you have to make them do what you want to do. Babe didn't understand, why can't I just ask? Why can't I tell people what I want and then appreciate them for what they are? And so the movie shows Babe the pig eventually going to a sheep herding competition, and everybody watches him herd these sheep in a manner that nobody's ever seen before, where there isn't a lot of running and chasing. The sheep just calmly walk where he asks them to walk and go where they're supposed to go without any coercion, without any force. And it's a great reminder of the power of kindness. The whole movie centers around how much we value people being kind. And in the movie, during the competition, the whole crowd just basically goes silent, watching with bated breath as the sheep kind of move into position in the last part of the competition. And so the gate closes shut and the whole audience just goes wild. And he gets a perfect mark, and then he goes home and lives happily ever after. But that story, I think, encapsulates how it's about being different than the rest of the world. It's stepping outside of the given paradigms and just becoming yourself, so much that people stop and pay attention. At first they might laugh at you, and then they might be interested, and then if you continue having integrity and being who you're meant to be and treating people with kindness, people respect you. And that, I think, is something that I would love to see more communities be built on, is the foundation of kindness. That's something that I've paid a lot of attention to, something that I build into my programs. And so if you are looking to start a Facebook group and run a community online, that's one of the resources that I would love to offer to you, is being able to do that and have a kind community at the core of the culture that you build into your group. So that's the talking pig story.
I'm assuming it's just the movie part, not the religion part that came before, since that doesn't apply to whoever will be sharing the post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll just be I'll probably try and write it in a way that it's very generic and it's open to, like, I'm not going to apply it to my program, but I'll be, insert how you would like to tie this into, your coaching business, and how kindness is a value of people that you want to. So I'll probably make some little parts of the post customizable for people. But for the most part, the majority of the text will be pre-written.
Yeah, so it's kind of like just fill in a small blank so it's like it matches your community, but you don't need to write the entire story.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Okay.
By the way, when you were talking in the beginning, you were talking about like religion, sheep and goats, and then you talk about talking pigs. I'm like, wait, there's talking pigs in the Bible? Why did I never hear about that?
There are talking donkeys in the Bible.
Really?
Yep. I have a sneaking suspicion that Shrek is actually a very, very loosely inspired adaptation from a biblical story.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it's just funny. Like, when you start to look at the Bible as like a collection of like, these are sections of wisdom that we've kind of like tried to preserve through story that help us understand reality. It makes it a whole lot more useful when you look at it as this is literally what happened. It sort of makes it like you have to have a sort of malleable relationship to reality in order for it to be, in order for that to work. And not that I'm knocking people who have that sort of literal interpretation of it, because I can see a point of view where that could be the case, where the more sophisticated that we become as a collective, our perception of reality gets more defined and sharpened. And so what may have been something that literally happened, it was because of like this low res understanding of how reality worked. But I don't know, it's just it's one of those things where it doesn't really matter what happens. It's like, if you're going to get some value out of it, if you're going to do something in terms of, does it make you a better person or not, that's what I care about. And there are some people who find a lot of value in those stories and actually do something about it. And then there's a whole bunch of people who just talk about it and it never impacts their life. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of those people anymore. I've seen the effect of being part of a culture without it creating any value. And I'm like, I don't have any time for that. I don't have any energy to spend on that. So anybody who has integrity in like the things that they value, the things that they believe in, and they actually do them, those are the people I want to be friends with.
Ah, crap. That's why you were friends with me, isn't it?
Yep.
Is that dramatic, like Frozen effect, or is it actually frozen?
I can hear you. Can you not see me moving? Oh,
now
there
I
we go.
can.
Now it's coming. All right. All right. So story number 2. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm gonna do this, but what does kindness look like in action? There are 3 movies that I really love. The main characters of the movies have something kind of like a hero's journey, but these characters in all three of these movies actually just serve as the reference point for the whole rest of the film. Forrest Gump and Back to the Future and Superman all feature a character who the circumstances kind of revolve around, and they move through the community, but things kind of happen to them and through them, especially with Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump doesn't have a huge character arc, but he's an observer throughout history. Back to the Future certainly has more of a character arc. Superman has a character arc, but they're both characters who are paying a lot of attention to what is happening to them. And their Superman is characterized as sort of an ideal version of a human being, or kind of the superhuman version of what we idealize in people. And one of the aspects of Superman is that extreme kindness, going out of the way when you don't need to. Like there's a moment where he rescues a kitten out of a tree for a little girl. It's like, why would somebody who has the ability to fly and superhuman strength take the time to do that? Because he could, and he chose to. Back to the Future is a story about a kid who travels back in time and prevents his parents from meeting. And because of that, he starts to disappear. And so the whole arc of that story is him trying to connect his parents so that the rest of the story of his family building a life together and him being born can happen. But his role in that film is essentially, how do I get two people to notice each other and become connected in a way that's meaningful? And Forrest Gump is somebody who just throughout these dramatic moments in history sees events play out and connects to other people in his life, and just observes, with kind of childlike wonder, what things happen throughout his life. And in terms of a community where kindness is at the core, the thing that you want your community to be doing is reflecting on what is actually happening in our community and observing what are those things. You want them to be going out of their way to connect other people in the community, and to be taking action when they don't have to, but they can choose to do something kind for other people. I think those are kind of aspects of what a kind community can look like that are great. Those movies can illustrate aspects of what kindness looks like when viewed through the lens of like an observer, somebody who has a task, or somebody who doesn't need to participate but chooses to. And so, the question is, how are you creating a way for people to feel or observe, does this community feel like it's a kind environment and space? Are you giving your members the opportunity to take action, to connect to other people, and to connect to events that are happening in the community? And are you creating enough freedom so that people who have more to contribute, who have other places and other things that they can do, places they can be, are you giving enough ownership in your community where somebody could choose to come in and do something the way that they want to do it, because it's valuable to them to be able to choose how they contribute and participate? So that's the big question, is like, here's kind of a teaching moment of different ways that kindness can look, and are you creating opportunity for that to happen? I'm just realizing how like super first draft this stuff is going to be. I'm going to have to do a lot of adjusting, but yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it a little confusing to have like 3 different movies combined into one post?
Probably. Yeah, I probably need to boil
I don't
it.
know. You're the one who knows what you're trying to share and the message you're trying to convey. It just seems
Yeah.
like having 3 different things in one post, like a post is very limited in length. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like just from my
I'll
perspective.
probably turn that I'll probably turn that post into like 3 variations of the same post and just use the 3 different examples. And it'll be the same exact post, but it's like if I post in one community and then a few days later I post it in another community, it uses a different example, but like here's a slightly different way you can communicate kindness. It's like, what kind of action are you allowing people to take that contributes to the kindness factor in your community? But yeah, that's a good observation. I do think it's too confusing, too complex. It needs to be simplified down to one idea. All right.
Just keeping of all the different ones so we know like where we are. So we have Babe, and this one, what would we call it? Like Forrest Gump slash To the Future slash Superman?
I would call, yeah, we could wait. What is the question that you're asking?
It's not important. I
Oh, okay.
realized as I was asking it and explaining, I realized like, yeah, I don't need to ask this. So keep
Oh,
going.
okay. All right. Okay, so um one of the core components that I talk a lot about is freedom in community. You have to build communities that are safe, that are kind, or that create connection experienced as care, and you have to create freedom, build freedom into your community. What exactly does freedom look like? One of the examples that I love is the story of Catch Me If You Can, which is about Frank Abagnale Jr., who ran away from home when he was 16, became a con artist, and led a fragmented life on the run while cashing illegitimate checks for millions of dollars. The story in the film, Catch Me If You Can, revolves around Frank being pursued by Tom Hanks' character, whatever the guy's name is, I forget, Hanratty, Carl Hanratty. And the search for acceptance or a father figure. The father in the Catch Me If You Can story vicariously lives through his son's actions and doesn't allow him to stop his criminal activity, even when his son asks him to tell him to stop. When he feels like he's done, his father continues to drive him to this lifestyle. At the end of the film, he's been caught, been to prison, and then released in care of the FBI agent the Secret Service agent that, no, I think it was the FBI, that caught him. And there's a scene where he decides to run again. And he's walking up the tarmac in his pilot's uniform, and Carl asks him how he shows up, and he tries to get him to come back to his job at the FBI office. And at the end of the scene, Carl tells Frank, "I'll see you back at the office on Monday." And he turns to go. And Frank asks him, "How do you know I'll be back?" And Carl tells him, "Look around, Frank. who's chasing you? Nobody's following you. And he creates enough freedom for Frank to realize the life that he has is a life that he's throwing away if he chooses to go back to his habit of criminal activity. And he lets him fly. He lets him go. And over the weekend, he keeps an eye on the clock. And Monday morning, he's watching for him. And he ends up coming back into work, after quite a bit of dramatic tension. But it's such a powerful moment that shows the importance of giving individuals the free ability to make a choice of how are they going to participate. You can be offering something very valuable to people, but if you're pursuing people, they feel like they're being chased. They feel like they don't have the option to make it their own decision. And so sometimes in your communities, you need to build in some degree of freedom where your offers are not quite so salesy. They're very I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. I'm trying to figure out where I want to land this. Oh, no, okay. In order for your community to run itself, it's important for you to find key members who will take ownership of the community at the level that you would take ownership of the community. And that won't happen unless you build freedom into your model and into the structure of the community that you're running. That's where I'm trying to take it. Is in order to make it valuable enough to other people, you have to kind of release it. Okay. So we're going to do some all-in posts. I really love the movie Nacho Libre. I've watched it like probably a dozen times. It's such a weird and funny story that tugs on your heartstrings about a priest who grew up in an orphanage and secretly becomes a Mexican street wrestler in order to win competition money to provide more things for the kids at his orphanage. The movie is a great example of what it looks like to go all in on what you believe in. There's a point in the movie where Nacho Libre has been secretly wrestling with his partner and living a double life. And I resonate with that a lot because I feel like there were parts of my life where I was leading two different lives. But there's a moment where everybody at the orphanage, at the mission, realizes that he's been wrestling, which in their little religious community is considered a sin. And regardless of what everybody thought of him, he knew in his mind, the reason that I'm doing this is a wholesome reason. I'm righteous in my choice to put myself out there, put my body and my life on the line in order to make a better life for these orphans. And even though people didn't understand fully what he was doing, he was committed to that idea so much that he went all in. when everybody told him he needed to stop. And even to the point where he lost in a match when he went up against a whole bunch of people in like a battle jam. But the movie is such a great example of what it looks like to commit to your dreams and why it's more noble to do the things that you dream about when you're doing it in service of others. And it's one of my favorite movies that highlights the feeling of going all in. So I guess the call to action is, are you all in on growing your community? Are you doing everything that you can to make it a great place for your members and for your clients?
I mean, that would be the call to action for our community. But this is a post for people. So people are not necessarily a community about building community.
True. Yeah. So it's, whatever their call to action is for, are you all in on the thing that you're trying to do, like that transformation that you're moving towards? Okay. What dreams may come is one of my favorite examples of how story teaches through hyper exaggeration and parabolizes the journeys that we go on when we embark on a new adventure. The story of What Dreams May Come is about a man who dies and finds himself in a paradise based on the paintings and artwork that he loved as a human. And when his wife commits suicide, she ends up going to the equivalent of hell in that movie. And his decision to give up the paradise that he's landed in, to venture through the underworld to go find her and see if he can bring her back and rescue her. When he arrives in the broken, distorted version of their home that exists in her hell, he realizes that she is completely lost and beyond help. And he makes the decision to stay there with her, even though it means giving up everything that he had gotten. And even though there was almost no hope of rescuing her, so to speak. It's a powerful illustration of the lengths that we go to when we know what we value. And in this movie, he said, Christy, the character, says he would rather, and I'll have to look up the quote, but he would rather lose his mind and spend eternity in hell with the woman that he loved than to spend an infinite amount of time in a paradise without her. And it really encapsulates the idea of when you understand what is the most important thing to you, the amount of suffering and waiting and pain that you are willing to endure just at the chance of possibly coming closer to your goal. And it's whatever your program is, whatever your business helps people with, you need to help people understand what is it that they are choosing and valuing, so that the things that they may need to give up still are worth making the sacrifice because of what it is that they're pursuing.
It's funny because it's a very, well, it's not unpopular, but it's very rare people who've seen that movie. I'm surprised that you picked that one.
Yeah, it's one of those movies, like, I didn't love it the first time I saw it. I was like, kind of, kind of okay. It's like cool visual effects, interesting story. I mean, it was like a version of the hero's journey and like a lot of similar themes. But like, as I've become an adult and like really contemplated like the deeper symbolic significance of that story, it's like I really love that story, because it's such a like a hyper exaggerated, like push to the far ends of our understanding of what reality is like. It's like to the ultimate extreme of like heaven and hell. It's like, are you willing to give everything up, everything, every single possibility for the thing that you love, for your dream, or for your, whatever it is that is most important in your life? And it really forces you to ask yourself those questions about like, what is the thing in your life that truly is meaningful? Like what? And it's, man, it's like kind of like a distilled, like mythic quality in that film. It's like it really gets to the heart of what all stories are about. I mean, and it's like, is it the best like spiritual or blockbuster type film ever? No, not really. Is it like overwhelmingly charismatic or like really well acted or directed? Not really, but like there's something like really true about that story in a way that a lot of films kind of sort of accidentally get to, where it feels like that one was very, very consciously and intentionally structured around like, this is what all of our stories are about. And it's like it's about the things that we most aspire to in life. Anyway.
All right, that makes sense.
Okay. I think the best movie franchise that captures what it looks like to be somebody who goes all in is the Mission Impossible franchise. Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. Okay.
It's like James Bond is a suave, kind of always gets it done kind of character, but I don't think anybody, maybe Jackie Chan, I don't know, but Tom Cruise commits in a way that I can't think of anybody else that shows and demonstrates the emotion and action of commitment better than in that franchise. And my favorite of the Mission Impossible movies is the third film, where the reason that he is in motion and taking action is not only because he has to save the world, but because if he doesn't, he risks losing his wife, who the bad guy has captured. He risks her being murdered if he fails. And the movie shows so many moments where he has a make it or break it moment and just has to commit and go all in. One of the centerpieces of the movie is when he goes to Shanghai and has to jump off of a rooftop and swing from one building to another, hanging off of a wire. And he's on a clock. He literally has a couple of hours before they kill his wife. And so he doesn't have a lot of time to say, do I feel like doing this? Is there a better way of doing this? This is the one shot, an idea that he has that might get him to the next step. And just seeing him embody going all in towards saving his wife, capturing or finding the object for the villain of the story, and trying to track down where he needs to go next. It's such a riveting film that encapsulates total commitment. And if you don't have a way to help your people take action and understand why it's important that they take action now, you're missing one of the most critical ways that you can help people move towards the transformation that you can help them achieve in your business. And I mean, so like if this is for my thing, one of the ways that we help people take action when they're building community is we just give you one step at a time, and it takes 5 minutes or so to do one assignment for the day. If it's that simple and that clear, it makes it so much easier for people to just keep moving forward, because they're not having to think really hard about, do I want to do this? Do I need to do this? All they need to do is set aside a tiny amount of time to make progress in their business. And if you're not creating that amount of simplicity in your program, you might be keeping people from achieving transformation, even though they really want to. I might actually just keep that, like talk about well, if I'm giving this to other people, then it needs to be, I'll probably just cut it out, but yeah. Okay, so that's what, 6 so far?
Yep, halfway there.
Okay. One of my favorite films that just feels great whenever I watch it is The Goonies. But what I love about that story as it relates to community.
Sorry, I missed the name.
The Goonies.
The Goonies, okay. Oh, first one on the list that I haven't seen.
It's pretty fun. I mean, it's a kid's film for sure, but it's like that like peak 80s blockbuster, kind of like kids popcorn entertainment. So if you haven't seen it, it's a really fun, just kind of like diversion film. But The Goonies is a story about a ragtag group of kids who go on a treasure hunt and end up avoiding a escaped prison convict with family who is, I don't know, in the mafia or something. But the film shows two great aspects of what community looks like. The group of kids that all has to work together and goes through the adventure no matter what obstacle comes up. And at the end of the film, I won't spoil, well, I won't spoil the ending, but the real treasure that they discover at the end of the movie is the power of friendship, that their community is the reason that they made it all the way through the end of the journey. And their group of friendship was so overwhelming that one of the kids in the group actually makes friends with one of the bad guys and pulls him into their small group of friends. If that's not a great demonstration of how community can change and transform someone, I don't know what is. But if you want your community to be experienced as a place where connection and care really takes place, when somebody comes into your community, they should feel welcomed and drawn into your circle the same way that I forget the characters' names. Chunk befriends the, like, whatever his name is, the Goonies. Let me look it up.
Mickey, Brand, Chunk, Mouth, Data, Andy. I don't know, I'm just on Wikipedia. I had no idea that Sean Astin was like, you know, lead role material before like the Lord of the Rings, because I just saw him in the Lord of the Rings. That's how I first got to know that actor.
Yeah, he was a kid, he was a child actor. And he was in several films before Lord of the Rings. He was in that. He was in, like, Rudy is another big one that he was in before Lord of the Rings. So Chunk befriends Sloth and actually, you know, converts him into their group of friends. So the big moral of the story is, does your community consistently convert people and draw them into feeling like they belong? Let's see here.
Man, this would be so weird because the guy's like 51 now. I'm used to like thinking of him like in the Lord of the Rings, and watching this movie when he's like 14, that would be really weird.
All right. What was I thinking when I wrote these stories down?
What does that mean?
I'm trying to figure out what. Well, I had okay, I think I know what it is. I have 3 names of movies written here, but I was trying to remember what the point was that I was gonna make with these.
Oh, okay, okay. I
Okay.
thought you meant, what was I thinking when I was doing this? Oh crap, I thought that's what you meant.
I mean, that is, but like for a different reason. All right, so what does it look like when you become a part of a community? Toy Story 3, Chicken Run, and Shawshank Redemption are all the same movie. They're all Prison Break films. And there's one aspect that happens in all 3 of these films that I think is worth noting. And that is, they find themselves in a place they want to escape. And they can't do it alone. Every single one of these films has at least a pair or small group of people who end up having to work together to escape the situation that they're in. Now, your audience may not be trying to escape a prison, but they're trying to escape their life. And what I've found is when you're trying to move towards a new version of yourself and leave an old life behind, it is so much easier to do it with other people than it is to do it alone. So just like Woody and Buzz needed the help of Jesse and Mr. Potato Head and everybody else in Toy Story 3, and the chickens all had to work together instead of fighting among each other. And in Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne befriended Red, and their friendship was part of the engine that allowed him to escape the hellhole of Shawshank Redemption. Your clients are going to have a much better chance of succeeding if they have people to do it with. If your business doesn't have a community, you're taking away one of the best ways that you can help your people succeed. So I guess the question is, do you have a way that people can do this transformation with other people? Righty. The new you. What in the world? I don't remember why I wrote this movie down.
Which movie is it?
It's Ocean's 11, and then I also have Bambi on here. I'm trying to remember what the relationship is between those two movies. So this is on the like taking. What's that?
They're both heist movies.
I don't remember what the connection was with Ocean's 11. Maybe I'll remember it some other time, but I'll just talk about Bambi. When somebody comes into your community for the first time, you should have a memorable experience for them where they are welcomed and noticed by your group. Most communities have a what members welcome post where the owner of the group welcomes people in, but often people aren't mentioned by name individually. They're just called out in a group of all of the latest members that week. But there's a scene in Bambi that is has always stuck with me. When Bambi is born, the whole forest gathers around to see the baby for the first time. We do this with our own kids. When there's a baby in our community, everybody wants to see the new baby. Your community is just like any other community. When somebody enters your group for the first time, they're essentially the baby in the family. And you want them to experience people noticing them, loving on them, and making them feel welcomed and wanted. If you can create a memorable experience the first time they step into your community, it's going to make it so much more likely that they're going to want to stay. Because honestly, how many other places have you had a world-class memorable experience the first time you went into their group? It's really not common. So if you can differentiate yourself by just going a little bit further than most people do, and encouraging your members and building the culture of welcoming new people in. All right.
I'm just wondering how you would have connected Ocean's 11 to this.
I can't remember. I'm trying to figure out why in the world did I. It might have been something more cerebral that probably wouldn't have worked. I mean, the idea that comes to mind that I'm not like, oh, this is what it was. I'm like, this is an idea that could have been it, but I don't have any confidence that it was. Like this thing that's in common with Bambi and Ocean's 11 is like Bambi is like the kid, but in Ocean's 11, like the heist is the idea that only exists because everybody in the Ocean's 11 movie is like contributing a piece, or they all believe in the idea. And so in a sense, it's like the thing that you do in your community is the big idea, or the idea of transformation, or the kind of person that you're helping people become is the heist. What is the thing that you're going to get away with? What is that, that identity that we're all trying to become at the same time? And it doesn't exist if everybody doesn't all have some level of belief in it. But I don't remember that. I don't know for sure that that's even what I was going to connect it to. Ocean's 11. Dang. I don't know if it was like the Linus character that was like brought into the he was like the new kid on the block in the heist world. Man, I can't remember what. Something about taking action. Something about the new version of you. I don't know. Don't know. All right. What does a great community experience feel like? A lot of it's going to depend on the individual, but I can use an analogy from one of my all-time favorite stories, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When the kids in this story discover that they can go into the world of Narnia through a wardrobe closet, a whole new paradigm and reality becomes accessible through this bizarre doorway. Your community should feel like people are stepping into a brand new world that is so different and so much more wonderful than the life that people are experiencing outside of your community, that they want to keep coming back. If you can create a portal to the sort of outcome and transformation that your clients are hoping for, and they discover that it's possible through your program and in your community, people will want to keep coming back again and again and bring their friends.
This reminds me of what we were talking about a couple of days ago with the whole like door and mysterious and like that whole, like we want them to feel like they're entering this mysterious thing.
Yeah,
That reminds me a lot of that.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I want to incorporate that as sort of like the why, like why do we seem to have this emotional response to discovering like some sort of hidden doorway or secret passage to some other exciting thing. There's something built into us that gets excited about finding a place nobody's been before. And if your community feels like an opening to a world that previously has been a big secret to your clients, it will automatically attract them into your business and into your program. I think community can best be described by television. Seinfeld, Star Trek, Futurama, and of course the sitcom Community all portray groups that all have to work together in various contexts. There are few mediums that have explored the nature of our connection to each other better than the chosen family model that television has given us. Seinfeld is a show about nothing, or so it claims, but it's really about the things that make life quirky and normal and funny and memorable. And it's about the things that make us human. Star Trek is about the human spirit. By pretending to go to other worlds, we remind ourselves of what the human experience is like. And it's truly about connection. Futurama is an animated sci-fi comedy that pokes fun at the, I feel like Futurama is kind of a, like, it's just something that I like, but I feel like it's not a very good example in this thing. I probably will drop it. But yeah, I just really like Futurama, and the connection that Fry makes with Leela and Bender and all of those other, the characters in this sitcom are developed and built out in many, many ways throughout the multiple seasons of the show. And Community is a satire of the television sitcom, but it has a big heart for the deep connection that we have with the people in our lives. Television has given us such a great reservoir of understanding of what it means to connect to other people. And go ahead.
It's cool because you're talking about Futurama and I'm like, oh, let's go check it out. It's like I've watched it, but turns out that Hulu renewed it for a 20 episode series in 2023.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
The only thing that sucks is that Hulu is one of the few services I can't get access to no matter where I am.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Been blacklisted from Hulu, eh?
no, it's just it's only US.
Uh, all right. I feel like
Sorry, I
that
got excited because I like the show.
I feel like there's not quite as solid of like a teaching idea there. I feel like this is one that I'll probably have to workshop out as I'm writing it. But it feels
It's
like
like here's a
what's
bunch
that?
of shows. You're just like, here's a bunch of show I liked. No reason.
Well, and in some on some level, that's kind of what I'm doing with these posts is like I'm a huge fan of like movies and to some degree television. Like so I'm just picking all my favorite stuff because it's a sort of low-key way of like, here's stuff that I like. If you resonate with this, you're probably gonna like me. Like like I'm teaching something using these stories as a like, but I'm also revealing a little bit more about the kind of person that I am and the sort of things that I like. Anyway, yeah, whatever. Swiss Family Robinson is a story about a family who gets shipwrecked on their way to Papua New Guinea and has to build a life for themselves in a small tropical island and surviving wild animals, pirate attacks, and the elements. Swiss Family Robinson is the epitome of what it looks like to manifest your dreams by continuing to take action and build a little bit at a time. And the thing that I love about this film is that it is a family, a small community that works together to create their own paradise. The movie ends with the family deciding to stay in the home that they've built after much of the film being about them trying to escape the island. And it's such a great reminder that we can build things that we love and lives that are meaningful to us out of anything around us. And if you build a community, you can create so much more with others than you could ever build yourself. Okay, I think that's 12.
Yep. Sorry, I got distracted because I was looking, and apparently Swiss Family Robinson was the first widescreen Walt Disney picture film shot with Panavision lenses. Blah blah blah. It's like I didn't know they even had widescreen back in 1960.
Oh, really? It's one of my favorite movies. It's not particularly great. I mean, it's a good movie. It was one of the bigger budget films of the day, and it was pretty popular. But it's like,
Like
it
was
shows its
budget
age
film
for sure.
or
It shows its age for sure. But it's like it's one of those movies I grew up watching as a kid. So it's like it's super infused with lots of nostalgia. But I mean, like most stories, and unless it's just like a really bad movie, because it has so many of the classic elements of storytelling, it's like it just works on just a story level. And so it's one of those things that's like it may not be one of the best films of all time, but it's one of my favorite films because I've seen it so many times and like from a young age.
I feel like I've seen it, but it was probably when I was young and I don't really remember anything about it.
It's a little cheesy.
I like cheese. All right. So You have all 4 stories done. Well, done. I mean, covered. Is there anything else we need to do in order for you to kind of get at a place where you're like, all right, I can just, sit down and do that?
I think at this point, probably not. I just need to sit down for a few hours and like type them out. This is probably gonna be like an all-day project, but yeah, I've got the bulk of what I need.
See, that's the beauty of this. I can't do this because that's your expertise.
Well, I think I'm gonna go in and take a nap.
That probably sounds like a good idea.
All righty. Well, we'll see you later, man.
All right. Hopefully this helped, even though I did absolutely nothing.
Definitely did help. It's like that.
Right.
It's like the Ocean's 11 thing. It's like sometimes I feel like I don't exist unless somebody's watching me.
Well, in that case, I'm like, do I have water I can squirt in my eyes?
Alrighty. This has been a good day, man. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Appreciate you too.